Dr. Amanda Collins pressed her face against the observation window of the research station. The stars looked different today. They seemed to flicker, like candles in the wind. She had been studying alien life forms for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The communication console behind her started beeping. Amanda turned around and saw a message waiting. The sender's name made her heart race. It was from the Keepers, the ancient race that had guided the galaxy for thousands of years. They never contacted humans directly. Amanda opened the message with shaking hands. The words appeared on her screen in perfect English, which was strange, because the Keepers had their own language. The message was short and simple. The Devourers return. All must flee to the core worlds. Prepare for the great exodus. She read it 3 times before the meaning hit her. The Devourers. She had heard stories about them in the old alien texts. They were creatures that ate entire star systems. Most scientists thought they were just myths. Amanda ran to the main communication center of Frontier's Edge Station. She needed to tell Commander Jake Morrison about this message. The station was busy with the usual work of monitoring the galaxy's edge. Scientists moved between computer terminals, checking data from distant sensors. She found Jake in the command room, looking at a large screen that showed the positions of nearby alien fleets. His face was confused and worried. "Jake, we have a problem," Amanda said, showing him the message. Jake read it quickly. His eyes went wide. "This is from the Keepers? You sure this is real?" "Oh." "The authentication codes check out. It's real." Jake looked back at his screen. "That would explain what we're seeing out there. Look at this." The screen showed dozens of alien ships moving toward the center of the galaxy. The elegant Silithy crystal ships were leaving their home worlds. The massive Korthok war vessels were abandoning their fortress planets. Even the advanced Nexari fleets were packing up and moving. "They're all running," Jake said quietly. "Every single alien race is heading for the galactic core." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. If the Keepers were telling everyone to flee, and if every alien race was actually doing it, then whatever was coming must be terrible. Over the next few hours, more messages came in. The Silithy ambassador sent a formal goodbye to the human colonies. The Korthok military commander wished humanity luck in their final battle. Nexari simply said they were sorry they could not help. But the strangest message came from the Keepers themselves. It was addressed directly to Earth Command. And Jake played it for the entire station to hear. The voice was old and tired, like someone who had seen too much. "Humanity, your species is young and untested. You have been part of galactic civilization. For only 200 years, you do not understand what approaches. The Devourers have consumed entire galaxies. They turn matter into nothing. They make energy disappear. They erase the very fabric of space itself." The voice paused, and Amanda could hear what sounded like sadness. "We have seen 1,000 civilizations try to fight them. All failed. All were destroyed. The only way to survive is to run. Join the Exodus, or face extinction. There is no shame in retreat when the enemy cannot be defeated." Jake turned off the message and contacted Earth Command immediately. The communication took several minutes to reach Earth and several more for the reply to come back. During that time, Amanda watched the alien fleets streaming past human space. Ships that had been allies for decades were leaving without even saying goodbye. Finally, Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the screen. She was a tough woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in charge of human space defense for 10 years. Amanda had met her once and remembered thinking that she looked like someone who'd never backed down from a fight. "Commander Morrison," Admiral Hayes said, "we have received the same messages. Earth Command has been in session for the past 6 hours discussing our response." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Jake asked. Admiral Hayes looked directly into the camera. Her voice was calm and strong. "Humanity does not run from the unknown. We have never run from danger, and we will not start now. We thank the Keepers for their warning, but we will not join the Exodus." Amanda felt her heart pounding. Every other species in the galaxy was fleeing, but humanity was going to stay and fight. "We will prepare," the Admiral continued. "We will adapt. We will study this enemy and find a way to stop them. That is what humans do. We solve problems that others say cannot be solved. Jake stood up straighter. What do you need us to do, Frontiers? Edge will be our first line of observation. You'll monitor the approach of these devourers and report everything you see. Dr. Collins, your expertise in alien biology will be crucial. We need to understand what we're facing. Amanda nodded, though she felt scared. Yes, Admiral, we'll do whatever it takes. Admiral Hayes smiled slightly. I know you will. And I want every alien ship that passes your station to hear this message. Humanity stands with any who choose to fight. Our door is always open to those who want to face the darkness together. The transmission ended, leaving the command room in silence. Outside the window, more alien ships flew past, all heading towards safety. But inside the human station, men and women prepared for war. Amanda looked at Jake. Do you think we're making the right choice? Jake watched another alien fleet disappear into the distance. I don't know if it's right, but it's who we are. Humans don't run. Stand and fight, even when everyone else says it's impossible. The last alien ship vanished from their sensors. Amanda realized that humanity was now alone on the galaxy's edge. Soon, they would face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than their own, but they would not face it running. It would meet it head-on, as humans always had. 3 months had passed since the Great Exodus. Captain Ryan Bell looked out at the empty space where the Silithy homeworld used to be, surrounded by thousands of ships. Now there was nothing but silence and abandoned cities floating in the dark. His ship, the Explorer, moved slowly through the ghost systems. Every planet they visited told the same story. The aliens had left everything behind in their rush to escape. Entire civilizations' worth of technology sat waiting on empty worlds. Captain, we're getting readings from the surface, said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the scanner station. The Korthak left their weapon factories intact. Looks like they were in too much of a hurry to destroy them. Ryan nodded. At the location, Command will want to know about those weapons. He turned to his communication officer. Send a message to Dr. Collins on Frontier's Edge. Tell her we found another abandoned Keeper archive on the third moon. Back on the research station, Amanda Collins was deep in her study of alien technology. The fleeing races had left behind more advanced equipment than humanity had seen in 2 centuries of contact. But what interested her most were the Keeper archives. The Keepers were the oldest known race in the galaxy. Their records went back millions of years. If anyone knew the truth about the Devourers, it would be them. Amanda worked alone in the archive chamber they had built on the station. Ancient Keeper devices covered the walls, their surfaces covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. She had learned to read some of their language, but it was slow work. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning. Amanda was examining a crystal data storage unit when she accidentally activated a hidden section. New symbols appeared, and suddenly she could read them clearly. Her hands started shaking as she understood what the text was saying. She ran to find Commander Morrison. She found him in the engineering section, where Katie Wells was working on something called Project Defiance. Katie was humanity's best engineer, and she had been studying the abandoned alien weapons for weeks. Jake, I need to show you something, Amanda said. Breathing hard from running, they went back to the archive chamber together. Amanda activated the crystal and pointed to the translated text on her screen. The Devourers aren't invaders from another galaxy, she said. There's something much worse. According to this, they're reality itself coming apart. They don't destroy matter and energy. They make it stop existing entirely. Jake read the text carefully. His face went pale. It says here that conventional weapons don't work on them at all. Bullets, lasers, bombs, nothing physical can hurt them, because they erase the laws of physics themselves. Amanda nodded. Every previous civilization tried to fight them with normal weapons. Ships, missiles, energy beams. It all failed because the Devourers turn the rules of reality off wherever they go. What about the core worlds? Are the aliens safe there? Amanda showed him another section of text. The Keepers think so, but they're not sure. The Devourers move slowly. The galactic core has different physical laws because of all the black holes and neutron stars. But this archive says the Devourers have consumed entire galaxies before. They always win in the end. Jake was quiet for a long moment. We need to tell Katie about this. Normal weapons don't work. She needs to know. They found Katie in the main laboratory with Dr. Marcus Stone, humanity's top physicist. They were working on designs for new types of weapons, using technology learned from the abandoned alien equipment. Katie, we have bad news, Jake said, and Amanda explained what she had found. Katie listened carefully, then looked at her weapon. Designed so conventional physics won't work. We need to think bigger. She turned to Marcus. What if we don't try to destroy them? What if we try to make reality stronger instead?
Marcus adjusted his glasses and looked at the keeper data.
Archives mention something called reality anchors, devices that prevent space and time from being changed. If we could build those, we could create zones where the Devourers can't erase physics, Katie finished. It wouldn't be attacking them directly. It would be defending the fabric of space itself. Over the following weeks, they worked day and night on the new technology. Katie led teams of engineers who had volunteered to stay on the galaxy's edge instead of fleeing to Earth. Marcus worked with physicists from several human colonies, all trying to understand how to build machines that could hold reality together. The first test of a reality anchor happened on a small asteroid near Frontier's edge. The device was only the size of a car, but when they turned it on, the space around it became more solid somehow. Sensors showed that the basic forces of physics were stronger in that area. It works, Katie said, looking at the test results. The anchor's making a bubble of stable reality. If our theories are right, the Devourers won't be able to erase anything inside that bubble. But their celebration was cut short when the long-range sensors picked up something new. Lieutenant Foster was the first to see it. Captain Bell, Commander Morrison, you need to see this, she said over the communication system. Ryan's ship had been exploring the outer edge of the galaxy when his sensors detected movement in the empty space beyond the last star system. At first, it looked like a small dark cloud, but as they watched, the cloud grew larger. It's not a cloud, Ryan reported to the station. It's something else. Something that makes our sensors stop working when they try to look at it directly. Amanda felt her blood turn cold. That's them, the first Devourer scouts. They watched as the dark shape moved toward the outer dead star systems. When it reached the first one, something terrible happened. The stars didn't explode or burn out. They simply stopped being there. One moment there was a solar system with planets and moons. The next moment there was nothing but empty space. Dear God, Jake whispered. It's really happening. The reality of their situation hit everyone at once. The Devourers weren't a distant threat anymore. They were here, at the edge of known space. And they were exactly as terrible as the archives had described. But humanity's response was typically stubborn. Instead of panic, they got to work. Katie doubled her teams working on reality anchors. Marcus began designing weapons that could affect space and time itself. Amanda continued studying the Keeper archives, looking for any weakness the ancient race might have discovered. And Captain Bell began the most dangerous job of all. He took his ship and crew closer to the Devourer scouts, trying to learn how they moved and what they did. His reports became humanity's first real intelligence about their impossible enemy. They're not fast, he reported after a week of careful observation. But they never stop. They move through space like they own it, and everything they touch just ... stops existing. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood in the war room on Earth, looking at a map of the galaxy that showed red dots moving slowly toward human space. Each red dot was a Devourer scout that had consumed another star system. In just 2 weeks, they had erased 15 solar systems from existence. How long do we have? She asked General Paul Carter, her chief of staff. At their current speed, they'll reach the outer human colonies in 3 months. Earth itself in 8 months, Paul replied, but that's assuming they don't speed up. Lisa studied the map carefully. Every military expert had told her the same thing. Build defenses, dig in, and hope the reality anchors would work. But Lisa had spent her whole career thinking differently than other officers. No, she said finally. We're not going to wait for them to come to us. Paul looked surprised. Admiral, with respect, these things have destroyed every civilization that tried to fight them. Maybe we should focus on evacuation to the core worlds. Lisa turned to face him. Paul, what do humans do when everyone says something is impossible? Paul smiled slightly. We prove them wrong. Exactly. Get me, Captain. Bell and Commander Morrison on a secure channel. And contact Katie Wells. I have an idea. 2 days later, Captain Bell's ship Explorer joined a fleet of 20 human vessels at the edge of the galaxy. They were all volunteers who had signed up for what everyone called a suicide mission. The plan was simple and completely insane. Attack the Devourers directly. Each ship had been equipped with experimental reality anchors built by Katie Wells and her team. The anchors were untested in real combat, but they were humanity's only hope of getting close enough to study the enemy. Dr. Collins was aboard the flagship Defiant with Admiral Hayes. She had volunteered to come along, saying that someone needed to observe the Devourers up close if humanity was going to understand them. All ships. This is Admiral Hayes, Lisa announced over the fleet communication system. In 1 hour, we will engage an enemy that has never been defeated, but we are not here to win a traditional battle. We are here to learn, to adapt, and to prove that humans do not give up. The fleet moved toward the nearest Devourer scout. They got closer. Amanda watched the readings on her instruments change in impossible ways. Temperature readings showed both absolute zero and infinite heat at the same time. Distance measurements gave negative numbers. Time itself seemed to slow down and speed up randomly. Reality anchor activating, reported the ship's engineer. Suddenly, the wild readings stabilized. The anchor was working, creating a bubble of normal physics around each ship. My God, it's working, Amanda whispered. You can actually get close to them. The Devourer scout was unlike anything they had imagined. It wasn't a ship or a creature. It was a sphere of absolute nothingness, about 10 miles across. Looking at it hurt the eyes because the brain couldn't process true emptiness. It moved through space like a hole in reality itself. All ships begin attack pattern Alpha, Admiral Hayes ordered. The human ships spread out and began firing their weapons at the void sphere. But as expected, conventional weapons did nothing. Laser beams simply stopped existing when they touched the sphere. Missiles vanished completely. Phase 2, Hayes commanded. Deploy the reality bombs. Katie Wells had designed the reality bombs. Based on theories that most physicists said were impossible, instead of destroying matter, they created new matter and energy in empty space. If the Devourers fed on nothingness, maybe overwhelming them with existence would work. The first reality bomb exploded near the Devourer scout. Space itself seemed to bend, and suddenly there were new stars and planets where empty void had been. Moments before, the Devourer sphere shuddered and moved away from the explosion. It worked, shouted Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez from his fighter ship. The thing actually moved. But their celebration was short-lived. The Devourer scout began to change shape, becoming larger and more aggressive. It started moving toward the human fleet much faster than before. All ships retreat to safe distance, Hayes ordered. We've learned what we came to learn. The retreat. Amanda made careful observations of how the Devourer reacted to their attacks. Admiral, I think I understand something important. The reality bombs don't hurt them, but they do force them to work harder. It's like we're making them digest food that fights back. Over the following weeks, the human fleet conducted 12 more attacks on different Devourer scouts. Each time, they tried new tactics and weapons. When reality bombs proved only partially effective, Commander Sarah Mitchell developed swarm tactics using hundreds of small ships equipped with reality anchors. The swarm attacks were more successful. By surrounding a Devourer scout with dozens of reality anchors, they could trap it inside a cage of stable physics. The scout couldn't erase the anchors because they were specifically designed to resist reality manipulation. We're not destroying them, Sarah reported after the first successful swarm attack. But we're stopping them from moving forward. We've effectively frozen one scout in place. Tony Rodriguez piloted the first successful test of a new weapon Katie called a existence missile. Instead of carrying explosives, it carried compressed matter and energy that expanded violently when it hit its target. When the missile struck a Devourer scout, it forced new reality into the empty space, so fast that the scout couldn't absorb it all. The existence missile actually pushed it backward, Tony reported excitedly. We made one of these things retreat, but the cost of their successes was terrible. Half the human fleet had been lost when their reality anchors failed or when they got too close to the Devourer scouts. Good people like Captain Stevens and Lieutenant Parker had vanished along with their ships, erased from existence without even debris left behind. Despite their losses, the human attacks were having an effect. Long-range sensors showed that the main Devourer swarm had slowed its advance toward the galactic center. More importantly, the scouts were starting to behave differently, as if they were learning to counter human tactics. Dr. Collins made the most important discovery during their 13th attack. While studying sensor readings from a particularly large Devourer scout, she noticed something strange. "Admiral, these things aren't mindless," she announced. "They're learning from our attacks. Each scout we fight shares information with the others. They're adapting to our weapons almost as fast as we develop them." This news was both terrifying and encouraging. It meant the Devourers were intelligent, which made them more dangerous. But it also meant they could potentially be reasoned with, or at least predicted. If they can learn, Admiral Hayes said, then they can make mistakes. If they can make mistakes, we can exploit those mistakes. The human fleet had accomplished something no previous civilization had managed. They had fought the Bowers and lived to tell about it. They had slowed the enemy advance and proven that the void could be resisted. But as they returned to human space to refit and plan their next attacks, long-range sensors brought disturbing news. The main Devourer swarm was massive beyond imagination. It stretched across thousands of light years and contained millions of void spheres, some larger than entire star systems. "We've proven we can fight them," Admiral Hayes told her officers. "Now we need to prove we can win." The first phase of humanity's war against nothingness was over. They had chosen to stand and fight when everyone else fled. They had adapted and learned and survived first contact with an enemy that consumed galaxies. But the real battle was just beginning. The evacuation ships left Earth in a steady stream, carrying millions of people to the outer colonies. Captain Bell watched them go from the observation deck of the Defiant, feeling a sadness he had never experienced before. His homeworld was almost empty now. But not because humanity was running away. Earth was being evacuated because it was about to become the center of the most dangerous experiment in human history. Dr. Marcus Stone stood in his laboratory beneath the ruins of Geneva, surrounded by equipment that most physicists said was impossible to build. The reality around him flickered and shifted as he made final adjustments to the consciousness cascade device. "Are you sure this will work?" asked Dr. Collins, who had returned from the fleet to help with the project. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "I'm not sure of anything anymore, Amanda. But our computer models show it's theoretically possible. If we can link every human mind together, we might be able to create a consciousness field strong enough to affect reality itself." Amanda looked at the readings on his machines. 6 months of fighting the Devourers had taught them terrible truths about their enemy. The most frightening discovery had come from Dr. Stone himself. "The Devourers are drawn to intelligence," he had reported to Admiral Hayes after studying the attack patterns. "The smarter a species, the faster they get consumed. That's why the Keepers always tell civilizations to hide and run. Thinking itself is like a dinner bell to these things. It was the cruelest irony imaginable. It's the very thing that made species great was what doomed them against the Devourers. Every brilliant mind that tried to solve the problem just made their civilization a bigger target. But humanity's response had been typically insane. Instead of hiding their intelligence, they decided to use it as a weapon. The consciousness cascade was designed to link every human mind into a single network. Not just the people on Earth, but every human in the galaxy. Colonists on distant worlds, crews on space stations, even the volunteers still fighting the Devourer scouts at the galaxy's edge. 10 billion minds thinking as one, Marcus explained. To the small group of people who would remain on Earth to operate the device. If consciousness can affect reality, then concentrated human consciousness might be able to create instead of just destroy. Katie Wells had volunteered to stay behind and help operate the cascade. She stood next to the main control panel, making final checks on the reality anchors that would protect the facility. I've reinforced the anchors around the entire facility, she reported. When the Devourers come, we'll have maybe an hour of protection before they break through. That's our window to make this work. Admiral Hayes had also chosen to stay on Earth. She stood in the command center, watching the approach of the main Devourer swarm on the long-range sensors. The wall of nothingness was only days away from the solar system. No human colonies. Report ready, said her communication officer. The Cascade transmitters are active on every world. When you give the word, we can link every human mind in the galaxy. Hayes nodded. She had sent one final message to the alien races hiding in the galactic core. Simple and direct. This is Admiral Hayes of the human species. We go now. To light a fire in the dark, remember us not as the fools who stayed behind, but as the species that chose to burn rather than hide. The alien response had been immediate and unanimous. The Keepers had begged humanity to reconsider. Silithy had offered to take human refugees. Even the proud Korthok had admitted that humans were braver than they had ever been. But Captain Bell, now commanding the last human fleet in Earth orbit, had given them humanity's final answer. We thank you for your friendship, but this is who we are. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We stand and fight, even against the impossible. On the last day before the Devourers reached Earth, Dr. Collins made one final discovery in the Keeper archives. She found a text that had been hidden so deeply that it took her months to decode it. The Devourers aren't evil, she told the others as they prepared for the final battle. They're entropy, or the universe's tendency to fall apart, to become nothing. But the text says there's an opposite force, the drive to create, to build, to make something from nothing. Marcus looked up from his calculations. You mean, life itself is the opposite of the Devourers, not just life. Consciousness, intelligence, the ability to imagine something and then make it real. That's what fights entropy. Admiral Hayes understood immediately. So when we think together, when we imagine together, we're not just defending against the void. We're attacking it with the one thing it can't consume. The Devourer swarm arrived. At the edge of the solar system, like a wave of darkness, the void spheres were enormous, some larger than Jupiter. There were thousands of them, moving in perfect formation toward the sun. All remaining ships, fall back to Earth's orbit, Hayes commanded. Begin the cascade activation sequence. Around the galaxy, humans felt a strange tingling in their minds as the consciousness cascade came online. On Mars, a farmer suddenly felt connected to a scientist on Alpha Centauri. On the Moon, an engineer shared thoughts with a teacher on a colony ship near the galactic rim. Dr. Collins felt her consciousness expand as millions of human minds linked together. She could feel their fear, but also their determination. Sadness at what might be lost, but also their hope for what might be created. 10 billion minds online, Marcus reported. The cascade is stable. We are connected. The Devourers consumed the outer planets first. Mars simply ceased to exist, followed by Jupiter and Saturn. But as they approached Earth, something unprecedented happened. The combined consciousness of humanity began to push back against the void. The Devourers tried to erase reality. Human imagination recreated it. Where they brought nothingness, human minds brought new stars and worlds into existence. It's working, Katie shouted over the sound of reality tearing and reforming around them. We're not just resisting them. We're creating faster than they can destroy. Admiral Hayes felt the power of 10 billion human minds flowing through her own consciousness. She could sense the Devourers' confusion as they encountered something they had never faced before. Intelligence that grew stronger when challenged, that created more when threatened with destruction. Now, she said, speaking to every human mind in the galaxy at once, show them what it means to be human. Show them that we don't just refuse to surrender, we refuse to let anything surrender. The battle for reality itself was about to begin. The moment the Devourers touched Earth's atmosphere, 10 billion human minds felt it like a physical blow. Dr. Collins gasped as the sensation of nothingness washed over her consciousness. It was cold beyond imagining, empty beyond description, but something extraordinary happened next. Instead of being consumed by the void, humanity's linked minds began to fight back with pure thought. Where the Devourers tried to erase the air above Earth, human imagination created a new atmosphere, where they attempted to dissolve the oceans. Human consciousness rebuilt them from memory and dreams. Admiral Hayes felt the power flowing through, the consciousness cascade. Every human mind was connected to hers, and through her, to each other. She could sense a farmer on a distant colony imagining new crops growing in empty soil. She could feel a child on Mars dreaming of butterflies, and suddenly those butterflies existed in the space between Earth and the void. "We're not just defending," Marcus Stone reported, his voice filled with wonder. "We're creating new realities faster than they can destroy them." The Devourers had never encountered anything like this. For millions of years they had consumed galaxies by turning matter and energy into nothingness. But human consciousness was doing the opposite. It was turning nothingness into something real. Katie Wells watched her instruments as reality bent and twisted around Earth. "The void spheres are slowing down. They're having trouble processing what we're doing to them." Through the linked minds, Dr. Collins suddenly understood the truth about the Devourers. They weren't evil destroyers. They were part of the universe's natural cycle, the force that returned everything to the peaceful emptiness that existed before creation. They were entropy given form, the ultimate end of all things. But humanity represented something that had never existed before in their long history. They were stubborn enough to refuse the natural order. They were creative enough to imagine new possibilities. And now they were connected enough to make those possibilities real. "I can see what they really are," Amanda announced to the others through the cascade. "They're not trying to hurt us. They're trying to give us rest, to end the struggle of existence and return us to peaceful nothing." Admiral Hayes understood immediately, but we don't want rest. We want to keep building, keep growing, keep creating, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. The battle raged across multiple levels of reality. In normal space, the Devourer swarm surrounded Earth like a shell of absolute darkness. But in the realm of consciousness, humanity was building a new kind of universe. Every human mind contributed something different. Engineers imagined new laws of physics that made matter more stable. Artists created colors that had never existed before. Musicians composed harmonies that gave structure to empty space. Children dreamed of impossible animals that began to live and breathe in the void between worlds. Captain Beale, still commanding the last human ships in Earth orbit, watched in amazement as the space around his vessel filled with new stars. They weren't normal stars, but something better. They were stars made of human hope, burning with the light of 10 billion minds that refused to give up. "Admiral, the Devourers are changing," he reported. "They're not trying to consume the new matter we're creating. They're studying it." Through the cascade, humanity could sense the confusion of the void spheres. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers were encountering something that grew stronger when challenged, something that created more when threatened with destruction. The largest Devourer sphere, one the size of Earth's moon, moved closer to the planet. But instead of trying to consume it, the sphere began to communicate. Its voice was like the echo of every ending that had ever happened, every star that had burned out, every civilization that had faded away. "Why do you resist the peace we offer?" it asked. "Why do you choose struggle over rest? Why do you choose pain over emptiness?" "Admiral," Hayes answered for all humanity, her voice carrying the thoughts of 10 billion minds. "Because struggle makes us stronger. It's because pain teaches us to appreciate joy. Because emptiness is not peace, it's just nothing." "You will fail eventually," the Devourer replied. "All things end. All minds grow tired. All civilizations fall. To dust, we have seen galaxies born and die. We've watched species rise and fade. Nothing lasts forever." "Maybe not forever," Hayes said, "but we'll last as long as we can. And while we last, we'll keep building, keep creating, keep making something from nothing. That's what humans do." The Devourer sphere pulsed with something that might have been. "Curiosity, show us," it said. What happened next was beyond anything the Devourers had experienced in their million-year existence. Humanity didn't just create new matter and energy. They created new forms of existence itself, imagined ways for consciousness to exist without matter, for love to become a physical force, for hope to generate actual light. The void spheres that had come to consume Earth found themselves being transformed instead. Human creativity was infectious. Human determination was impossible to resist. Human stubborn refusal to accept defeat was stronger than entropy itself. One by one, the devourer spheres began to change. Instead of bringing nothingness, they started, creating alongside humanity. Instead of ending things, they began to build new realities that had never existed before. They're not our enemies anymore, Dr. Collins realized. They're our partners. We're teaching them that existence is worth the struggle. Years later, when the alien races finally returned from the galactic core, they found something miraculous. Not only had humanity survived, but they had transformed the galaxy itself. Where the devourers had consumed worlds, new and better worlds now existed. Where stars had been erased, new forms of light burned that would never go out. The grateful aliens offered to make humanity the leaders of the restored galactic civilization. But Admiral Hayes, now an old woman but still stubborn, gave them a typically human answer. "We didn't fight the darkness to rule the light," she said. "We fought because it was right. The galaxy belongs to all of us. We'll just make sure nobody has to face the void alone again." Captain Bell, now retired but still curious, trained young aliens in human military academies. He taught them the most important lesson humanity had learned. Sometimes the best response to an impossible problem is to refuse to accept that it's impossible. Dr. Collins led research teams that included both humans and reformed devourers, exploring the new realities they had created together. She discovered that consciousness itself was the most powerful force in the universe, capable of turning even death into a new form of life. And at the edge of known space, where new devourer scouts sometimes appeared from distant galaxies, human ships waited on patrol. Their message was always the same. "This is Commander Alex Turner of the reality patrol ship Steadfast. All is quiet on the rim, the light holds. Humanity stands ready." The universe had learned that when every other species fled, humanity stood and defied. And in defying the impossible, they had made it possible for everyone else to hope again.